the falsehood, you're faced with two options. You can accept it or you can reject it. The basis upon which we take one of these actions is a product of our critical thinking capabilities and a desire to know what is true instead of confirming our bias. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. On Brainstorm, we choose the hard truths over the comforting lies. Reason, compassion, skepticism. This is the Brainstorm Podcast.
To those listening live or to our patrons, welcome back. To those listening weekly, welcome to the Brainstorm Rec Table, the Brainstorm production where we spend some time discussing one topic or many, depending on where the conversation goes.
Don't lie, Cory. We only talk about rectums.
Only rectums. This is an open brainstorming session where I kick things off with some thoughts and we see where things go from there. I'm Cory and my panel tonight are Lisa.
I'm drinking.
Dan.
For real?
I'm not drinking.
Like, it's not alcoholic, but I took a sip, and Cory's like a bad waiter. He's like, "You're sorry."
Hello there.
Just eating time, not podcast time, Cory.
All right. Also, Rene.
Hello.
And, of course, the always amazing Dave.
Sorry to derail you, but I just didn't realize there was a party happening behind me here. So
Yeah.
I've got another story for you.
We are broadcasting live from Roman Empire Studios in Regina. And today is November 23rd, 2018. I got a couple topics I wanted to touch on here. And the first was climate change denial and talking to those who do such things.
You meet humans who do that. That's
yes. Why. Yeah, that's right.
They're everywhere.
They are. One of them is the president of the United States.
Yep.
No, but it's always off-putting when you meet someone like that in real life. Not the president, but when you meet somebody who denies climate change or is anti-vax or whatever. But I'm always just sort of floored. What? You're like a mythical creature I've only heard of. I don't understand. That's how I react. Anyway.
You people really exist.
Weird.
It's hard to compare Trump to anything because I'm starting to think he's not actually he's a composite.
He's not an actual human.
No, he's a composite. He's like a
caricature.
He's like a Muppet put together by I'm not sure what.
There's Dorito in there for sure.
Yeah. That's definitely part of it. But
oh, jeez. Yeah, Jen Gunter was talking about her dad before.
Did you say our Jen Gunter?
I was going to say our guest, but then I changed it to her name.
No, I think she's going to be our Jen Gunter from now on. She belongs to Brainstorm. She's all ours.
Yeah.
Sorry. What about our Jen Gunter?
She was talking about her dad being a climate change denier.
Is he our dad?
No, he's not. My dad is also a climate change denier.
You're just like Jen Gunter.
Not quite.
So what did she say about her dad? Sorry.
It's just, I was thinking about my dad and how any conversation can be steered towards that very denial of this major topic that's affecting the whole world. And I don't know, how do you even converse?
It's hard because what happens is, and we both have a common friend that's been a climate change denier for fucking ever now.
Yeah.
But because the problem is it's never, because you can never come up with that chair shot.
Right.
Boom. Here's the proof. Deal with it, fucker. But,
But they do. They're like,
no.
It's minus 30 today. So much for global warming. And you're like, you've ruined my whole perspective on
once
life.
again, the difference between climate and weather.
Science has failed.
Yeah. But they also, and then they show all these studies, and all they're doing is muddying the waters, and it's just impossible.
Yeah.
But the International Panel on Climate Change regularly puts out position statements and evidence for
Bah, they're just doing that for the big science money.
Fake news.
Oh, yeah, right.
But that's part of the argument is that they're doing all just for the grant money.
That's true.
That
is
you can
part
get
of
grant
the
money to
narrative.
do anything. Like, why would you waste your grant? Like, that's like
You're talking reality.
You know whose fault that is Michael Crichton or whatever the fuck that author's name is, because he has a whole book where.
Oh yeah, he's a climate. He's dead though.
Yeah,
Fuck
but
him.
all these people read this book. One of my friends
Glad you're
included,
dead.
and then they're like, "Oh, look, he had this argument
No,
that
that's
was
not
really
nice.
good."
Never mind.
So now it must be true because this author said once this thing.
Well, if you wrote Jurassic Park, you would write true things about climate science as well.
Exactly. I'm going to trust an author over scientific consensus
Because
Yeah.
those
because
words
there is a
make sense.
conspiracy, and the
Because those
author
words make sense.
has no conspiracy.
So
Or
what is the
knowledge.
actual question here? How to converse with those
Yeah.
people? Like you're
Like,
referring
how
to
do
maybe
we-
over Thanksgiving and what should we...
Well, or in general. I mean,
No fucking Thanksgiving's been over for like a month and a half.
An American
Fuck
Thanksgiving.
Americans.
Black
All
Friday.
the Americans putting their fucking Thanksgiving pictures. I'm like, fuck you.
I get
Thanksgiving was a
Sirius
month and a half
satellite
ago.
radio free this weekend. I'm super happy about American Thanksgiving.
Sorry,
But-
I'm so aggressive.
There's where I don't remember where I saw it lately, but someone was talking about how one of the main problems is that we just don't shut the fuck up anymore. You know, we just always have to be giving our opinions on everything, and that's sort of been responsible for a little bit more of the...
That's Bill Maher who said that.
Was it? Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't bring it up on the show then. After seeing what the shit Cory shared lately, which I still love Bill Maher in spite of it also.
I'm on the same.
it's not even funny.
He is funny.
I
He's
wanna
hilarious. And
see
he's
what-
still
what
a
did you
force for
post?
good. He's
His
still a force for
his
good.
show is funny. Stand-up's kind of
What
questionable.
did you post,
but-
Cory?
Stand-up is
Briefly?
not funny.
Well,
No,
and,
his
and
stand-up isn't, but his show. I still like his show.
I don't. I posted something about Trump is hack comedians or
Wow.
are responsible for Trump because he decided that he would post that comic books are responsible for Trump.
Sort of.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
sort
whatever.
of.
Anyway, so
Yeah,
take too long to get into that. Right
yeah,
now.
it's rather silly, but
okay, so climate change deniers. I just don't. Yeah, I don't know.
Because
Like,
the
it's
problem
really
is
hard.
you can't have a real conversation. Because like if they're sitting there going, there's some question about this. Oh, well, here's the studies. Da 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 da. Oh, yeah, you're right. That was never have that.
No, that's
You're
never happened. So
that
is
is
it
not going to be
better-
the conversation.
Is it better to just then be like, look, we don't value evidence in the same way. So there's really no point in us talking about it and just go on because
I would say two things. My problem when I actually encounter people, climate change or whatever, right? Whatever random bullshit people believe, is that like I don't actually require to personally become an expert in something in order to believe that if there's a scientific, consensus on something and the community saying this is what it is, I'm like, okay, well, all right, cool. Like I don't
Right.
I'm cool with that. Whereas like I'm not an expert in climate, right? Like I haven't read the latest international, intergovernmental panel on climate change. Like I haven't read their last report. Like, so I just don't know I don't know all the science. I don't know the authors. I don't know the research that's been done. I don't know, and then so that's kind of like as a scientist, that's where I want to kind of come at the argument. So if somebody starts arguing with me about like Big Bang, I often got that when I taught a class. People argue with me about like you get a Jehovah's Witness arguing with you about the age of the
Right.
universe. I could happily argue about that for a long time because I know what the evidence is. I know exactly why we think that. I know that there is zero chance that they're right. So whereas I don't actually really know where the pitfalls are and where what's established, what's not with climate change. Like I'm not like really up on the research,
Right.
so I struggle there in that way. And the other thing, the problem with climate change in particular is if a Jehovah's Witness comes up to me after class and says, "Look, I don't believe in the Big Bang," or "I don't believe the universe is 13.7 billion years old," et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like in the end, I'm like, whatever. The universe doesn't give a fuck what you believe. Go ahead and believe your thing. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Right? Who cares? But like with climate change, it actually does matter because maybe not for this one human, what they think, but if there is a large swath of people out there who are doubting the science, it could have very serious policy implications, right? Because the politicians are going to cater to this insofar as they think they should. So, it actually does have some actual ramifications. So it actually becomes important to try to convince people. But on the other hand, I just feel like I'm not well informed enough to argue about it.
okay, and so that's what I'm saying. I'm positing maybe that the act of proselytizing the the pro-science view to someone who's extremely anti or someone who's a climate change denier. The very act of going out of our way to do that and to try to do that is actually
having a negative effect. And in fact, it would be better just to not do it, similar to how atheists are not typically out there trying to convert people, right? That people typically come to atheism by their own means. And atheists, if they do anything, it's normally just asking a question here or there, what we call planting seeds, right? I worry though, because I mean, whether we have all the tools necessary to convince somebody or not, do we not have to confront them on some level when it's something that's harming other people?
I don't think so, because what power do they have as that one person other than spreading and sharing shit on social media versus what we have? So it's like you as someone who understands the negative effects of climate change and is willing to go out and share those in your social sphere. But when you meet a climate change denier, you immediately know that they don't value evidence in the same way that you do. So what I'm thinking is telling them that, saying like, I would rather just talk about other things with you. If you're assuming that person's a family member, you still want them to be your friend.
Right.
And I believe that somehow in their brain, eventually they will be like, wow, Cory believes that so much that he doesn't even have to ram it down my throat, that he just realizes.
That's assuming rational thought.
No, I think that's assuming irrational thought. It's assuming that because when they believe in their anti-climate change agenda so much, they realize that every single article they see, they have to share. When they get into a public sphere, they just have to tell people about it. Oh, that's a hoax. Anytime someone brings it up, that's a hoax. You know that. The planet's the ice is actually getting thicker. The planet's, they've evidence it's getting warmer or colder actually, and they just have to tell that every single scenario. And if you can just show that your belief is so strong that you don't have to do that, that's what I'm thinking. It may actually help somehow.
I don't know. I don't think that's the thing.
Y'all are
I've been able to be friends.
I'm just throwing it out there as a theory, okay?
I've been able to be friends with people who have totally opposing beliefs. Like I've been friends with Mormons before, and you just kind of get around it. Like I love asking Mormons more about the religion. It's so interesting to me. So they'll tell me their
that's
shit.
Fascinating.
And on the other hand, they know that I don't believe it, and we don't really go there. But that's just kind of a mutual respect thing in order to get along. I'm never going to be convinced to become Mormon just because we're not talking about it. And I know they're never going to not be Mormon because we're not talking about it. So I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, it's a hard thing because when you get dragged into that, I made the mistake one time when our common friend who's a denier.
Yeah.
And I said to him, finally, he was going off and off and off and off about it. And I'm just like, fine, send me your homework. Because he was using the line, I've done my homework, most sheeple haven't. And he sent it to, and he's like, really? You want to see my homework? Yeah. And he sent it to me, and I started reading it. And I just was like, this shit wouldn't pass any of my...
This is a fucking blog by fucking Cory, dude.
Yeah. Well, it was actual published articles, but I'm like, there was no footnotes. There was nothing. And I'm like, this wouldn't pass any of my 300 level university classes I was taking at the time. I was just like, what the hell? So then quick Google search of some of these authors, and I'm like, I'm supposed to take this guy's. He was writing about how Atlantis was real. He had books on that shit. Right. This is the guy that's going to
yeah.
And then and that's the point where I just went, okay, yeah, I question your ability to do homework.
But that's what people, anti-vaxxers do the same shit, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Google it, and then random blog by random housewife, and this is what I'm going to do. Like
they do this. They sift through and go, no. Oh, they agree with me. See, I'm right.
Well, it's actually probably even more nefarious than that. They Google the answer that they want.
Yeah.
So if you Google evidence Earth is cooling down, well, you're going to find pages that are supporting that.
Yeah. Evidence that Earth is flat.
Yeah.
People also like to make, well, obviously, okay, so maybe this is an obvious thing to say. People also like to make fallacious arguments. I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Sorry, I just, as I was saying it, I realized how stupid that sounded because we know this. But I remember,
true.
Okay, and I don't know if there's anybody listening or here today who believes in home birth, okay? But I remember being pregnant, and I was at a wedding, and this woman was trying to convince me to have a home birth because she just had a baby and she had a home birth, and it was, and this is the argument she made to me. She said, "Look, when you go into labor, are you sick? No. So then why would you go to a hospital?" that was her argument, and I'm like, so what my counter was to her, well, right, that's how she was like, done, bam, mic drop. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm not sick, but I'm in a very medically precarious situation with known risks, and I'd rather be around trained healthcare professionals in case of an issue. And she was like,
medical tools.
And then she couldn't answer, right? Like, because she'd made this whole decision based on when you go to a hospital, you only go there because you're sick. And when you're in labor, you're not sick. And I'm just like, that is just not, no. Anyways.
It's actually not a good argument in any sense.
Yeah.
Well, you know what you've done is you provided the counter meme to her meme. And sometimes people don't go out of their way to challenge that. And that's, yeah. And so she never had the counter. So instead she just probably sat there kind of awestruck, like, oh my gosh, no one's ever countered that statement before.
That meme has always been the ending to the conversation.
She caught the mic and just...
It's exactly like the, well, it's cold today meme, right?
Or the
so
guy
much for global warming, Cory.
standing there with the snowball in Congress. So much for global warming. I got a snowball. It's like, so what?
Well, and the same thing, people make the same thing about evolution, make some sort of argument like, well, how would eyes have evolved? You can't just have half an eye. So that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense for all these things to happen totally randomly. Like, I don't think you understand the argument of evolution. Once you understand what evolution is as a theory, then make a counter argument to it. But what you're just showing me is that you literally don't understand
Why are there still
the
monkeys?
argument. Right. Yes, that. And it's like, but you literally don't understand what evolution is, obviously, because your argument is not what evolution says. Like, I don't understand. No, this is not a thing. This is what I do. I go, no, I do, no. I come at the hairdresser or whatever. And no, I shouldn't even say that about my hairdresser. Never said that. But like that is an example. Right? And I just kind of stammer. But I usually stop. I get like maybe this far in, a minute in, and then they're not convinced. I'm just like, okay, I
can't deal with you right now.
Just trim my bangs. I don't know.
I do often. I mean, say with my dad, I do try to appeal to the consensus. Like I do use like, okay, so 97% consensus on climate change. That means that
wrong.
Yeah, well, that's right.
You're wrong.
Conspiracy.
That number's a lie. It's only like 95%. Okay, I'll give you 95% then. Like, at what point is it enough to convince you that
well,
this is
Cory, as you, I believe, posted yourself, actually, scientific consensus isn't about the number of scientists who think something. It's the overwhelming body of evidence that supports it, which scientists acknowledge.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's right. And
I don't know if you knew that, Cory, even though you were the one who posted it last time I saw it on Facebook.
This is all just about gotcha politics here.
Well, that's the age
but that's
we
the
live
kind of
in.
argument you make. Like, I had here's another thing, like similar to the labor thing. I was with my mom, and she was like, Lisa, I know you don't believe in God, but I pray to him for you anyways. And just because, what did she say? Just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean he doesn't exist. And I said, well, just because you do believe in God doesn't mean he does exist. And that shut that conversation. I mean, she hasn't brought it up since. It's been like 2 years. Like, I don't know. She's waiting. She's coming up with a counter argument somewhere in there, but it's interesting.
She's
how
waiting for her new
people
mic
have
drop.
but people have, like you said, a meme or like a phrase or a very simplistic argument that they like to make to you. And maybe with some people that kind of works and shuts them down. But if they're can be really easy to find like a hole in their argument, and then it's just like, whoa. And you're like, is this serious issue and belief system really just based on this silly thing?
This one statement? Maybe.
And I think the other problem with climate change is because it's so large and so vast, and there have been mini ice ages and
The climate's always changing.
Yes. And so that's where you got the wiggle room where we've only been studying climate for the last relatively short time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure. I have no idea how long.
But it hasn't been the entirety
No
of humanity.
longer than 100 years, I would say. Like,
yeah, no. So I mean, yes, there have been many ice ages. Supposedly there was that period in Europe where there was like unseasonably warm for a long time, and that's why they had these giant bumper crops and all the, things have changed.
Well,
before.
the mini ice age, I've heard of that's interesting. Anyways, continue.
And like, I mean, these things did exist. So that's where that gives them the wiggle room where it's like, well, we can't be doing anything. See, that happened before industry.
Climates change.
Yeah.
The end.
Or the argument about, which was apparently debunked, where it was like one article put out about they were worried about the next ice age, the global cooling, and then everyone, well, they're wrong about that, so they're wrong about this too.
Time magazine picked it up, and
it was just one article, but but that's just it. It's like, well, then do further research. Like, I mean, if the end result is the only reason why you don't want to believe in climate change is because you still want to be driving your fucking Hummer, and you just admit it.
What do you think? Like, there's obviously some people who are middle of the road type deniers in this sense, but then you have the guys who are rolling coal because they want to destroy the environment.
It's like, it's not even
what
that.
What are they doing?
It's not even that. They're just wanting to feast on the tears of the libtards.
Small penis also.
Yeah. That's a given. But that's what it is. It's like, well, you want me to be driving a Prius? Well, fuck you. Roll coal.
You guys see the guy rolling coal and lit his truck on fire? Oh God, that was so good.
That's awesome.
But that's where that comes from. It's not a fuck it, I'm gonna destroy the environment. No, it's take this, you fucking tree hugger.
Well, and you know what? They believe, rightfully so, that their little action has no bearing, and they're right.
Yeah. By and large, their one truck that's garbage isn't the problem.
That's technically running inefficiently.
Yeah. I'm gonna pay fucking whatever it is for gas.
Okay, I think maybe we're hitting on something here. People want to or feel desire to or choose to or do deny climate change, maybe because it has implications on how they live or on policy or on government or on taxation or whatever. You know what I mean? But in fact, that's actually not so, right? Like, in fact, whether climate change is happening or not can be completely decoupled from what we should do about it or if we should do anything.
Right.
It would be possible to acknowledge that climate change, man or whatever, human caused climate change is a thing, and say, well, it's just too economically disastrous to do anything about it. We're just not going to do anything. I mean, it's possible. Like, it doesn't,
right.
But because the implication of policy changes are so prescient in there that maybe that turns some people off from believing in climate change.
I could see that. Yeah, no, that makes sense. But
all right, well, I've answered that question.
Yeah.
We're done.
So what do we do with it?
I'm going to go home now. What do we do with it? I don't know.
Well, I think where it will come into play is when it affects the wallet. That's where the change will come. Because like in 2008, when everything, like just before the financial collapse, right? What started, I don't know if it really precipitated it, but it seemed to be part of it, was the extremely high gas prices, and suddenly everyone was in droves dumping the big ass trucks, and suddenly Priuses and hybrids, everyone was buying them, right? Was because the gas prices were so high, and that's ultimately what does change people's minds. Of course, then the financial collapse hit, the gas prices went down. Everyone's like, I want the big fucking truck again, and
I can't picture Saskatchewan without 50% big ass trucks.
Yeah, it is pretty tough to picture, isn't it?
It's not the same place.
Especially during agribition. Oh,
Fuck agribition.
driving is so
Agribition makes
hard.
me more angry than freaking David Suzuki, almost. Fuck David Suzuki.
Do you think? Yeah, I don't know what to think.
What? Are we against David Suzuki now?
Fucking hate him. You can't be on this podcast if you like
I'm sorry,
him.
I don't like him. I just don't know why to hate him.
I'm rather agnostic about David Suzuki.
Asshole. Fucking prick face.
Yeah, he's a jerk.
Prick face. New one.
All right, so let's move on to. Dan mentioned something in the planning group about, and I thought I had actually had something in the notes about it, about Alexandria Ocasio Cortez.
Holla.
And some of the reaction that just her mere existence is getting from Republicans.
Hang on. Sorry. I saw her, I've seen her like all over the news, but I feel like I missed like the first story. I don't know who she is. Like, I see her picture everywhere, I see her name everywhere, and then I don't click on the story. And who is she? What's going on? Maybe explain it for me
Sure.
and all the other listeners who maybe haven't. Sorry,
Sure.
yeah.
Alexandria Ocasio?
Ocasio Cortez, I believe.
Cortez.
Yeah.
There we go.
I believe you.
She is a congressperson from New York. She primaried an established Democrat. She's 28 years old and comes from pretty, I don't know, like not very wealthy roots.
She's like a bartender.
Yeah.
She started off as a like that's
Okay. So there was a Democrat, and then she beat that like more established Democrat in
And
the
then
primaries.
she won her district against the, I don't know.
She's in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Got it.
And Republicans, she's actually called herself a socialist, and she's been on quite a few media outlets, and she's made quite a few appearances, and she's been in the news quite a bit. And
well, for a variety of reasons, and one of
Yeah.
them being is because she's like the youngest congresswoman.
yeah, and a woman of
Previous was
color.
30 years
and-
old.
Yeah, she's like not even 30 yet. I
Yeah,
don't think.
28.
No, the previous youngest was 30.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the Republicans, some of the old Republican guard is coming out of retirement just so they can zing her on Twitter. But she
Okay.
always seems to come back at them with, wit and grace, and it's like, okay, so you're being outclassed by a long shot here.
Yeah, every step of the way. And I think the best meme that I saw was, it's like, why do all of these like Republican attack ads actually, if you just put them on like an extremely left-wing Democratic site, you can just use the same ad as, they're using it as propaganda for their cause. Like, she wants free tuition. And then we're like, she wants free tuition. It's like, don't even
it's
have
just
to
a
do
point where
graphics design twice.
it's so right it becomes left.
Well, no, they're using it as a negative, and we're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
she wants free tuition. She wants basic income. She wants basic income.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But no, the reason why I brought it up was because somebody snuck a picture of her from behind when she was walking into
Oh, I
Congress
saw
and
that,
said,
yeah.
"Oh, that shirt and jacket don't look like the shirt and jacket of a girl who's struggling," because previously she had mentioned about having to save up money, and that she was barely going to have enough money to pay her rent in Washington before she could start drawing up a paycheck.
Right.
And her clapback was just like epic. She said, if I walked in wearing a brown paper bag, they would take a picture of my behind and make fun of me. If I walk in wearing my best find at a thrift store, which I think she was implying that she was wearing that day, they're going to take a picture of my behind and make fun of me. And it's like, keep, darkness always tries to block out the light, so keep shining bright or something like that. And it was just like perfect. That was like, Hillary can say, when they go low, we go high, but that's actually what she's
Michelle
doing.
Obama said that.
That was Obama.
My bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, but
Yeah. Let's get the quotes right.
Hillary parroted it then. Okay.
Fact checked.
well,
And then,
I mean, she clearly did. It was a big
probably
part of her
ended up in
campaign.
Melania Trump's speech
I'm
somehow.
sorry, but I love Michelle Obama unequivocally, and I
don't you
sort of
marry her?
think Hillary Clinton's okay in some
I think
ways.
she's already married.
Very equivocally. Anyways, continue.
I think I was done, actually.
Yeah.
For
no.
real,
Fuck
I
you,
was
Dan.
done. For real, I was done, and it had nothing to do with you interrupting me. I was actually just happened to be done at that exact moment.
Yeah.
That's right, you are done.
I did think that it was something worth talking about a little bit. It's like, because I don't know what they think they're actually accomplishing when they're trying to zing her. Like Sarah Palin came out of the woodwork to try and get a pot shot in. And after some of the things that Sarah Palin has said, she mentioned something about, AOC made this mistake in this interview. And it's like, well, you said you could see Russia from your friggin' doorstep. Like,
when asking what do you read was a gotcha question.
I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, I think anytime
like
they're bringing attention to like a rising star in the Democratic Party, especially one that espouses such left-leaning policies and is charismatic and is inspiring the young voting base that needs to be inspired, it's like, go ahead. Yeah. Mention her all you want. Doesn't matter if you're trying to do it in a negative capacity. You're bringing more attention to her, which is what we need. Well, we, as in Democrats in the U.S., I am not that, but for some reason I definitely self-identify as one.
Yeah, yeah.
More than I identify as any sort of left-leaning Canadian. It's just very strange.
Yeah.
Is it November? I'm supposed to be voting, I think.
Is that the nature of the way our media is?
Well, then again, the way our politics are, conservative in Canada is pretty much a Democrat.
No.
Well, that used to be true.
Yeah, it used to be
true. Now it's getting more and more extreme, much like.
Well, yeah, because we always.
Oh, did you see the cover of Maclean's?
Oh God!
Worst dating website ever.
I prefer the mock-up someone did where they just redrew all their faces as if they're from King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I like where they re-headlined it, and it was like, voted most likely to send you dick pics.
There's like 5 goofy wieners or something like that. That's like one of them.
Canada, where the resistance is a bunch of white dudes resisting tax.
Yeah.
It looked. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how they thought that could be good PR because it looked.
Seriously, and from I hear from my left wing, it was like, I share an article. Oh, that's from Maclean's. That's leftist propaganda. And then it's like they literally just put on 5 of the most conservative, Republican premiers in Canada.
I listen to Canada Land podcast quite a bit, and they did an interview with the guy who had the byline on that. And I mean, Maclean's is actually a conservative-leaning magazine. People who think it's leftist propaganda are way off base.
It's pretty establishment.
Yeah, it's
pretty centrist at the very least.
He thought that this would be a cover that would never get any attention, and the guy who designed it or approved it, and
but
he said
so nauseating. How could it not?
He said that it's actually been the most shared, most seen magazine cover they've ever done.
I can think so.
That King of the as soon
really
as I saw
gross.
it, something bothered me about it, and it was just like
their expressions, and they're so sweaty and shiny and smug and all white old dudes, just so clearly just.
But then Mo something bothered me about Mo. Just maybe it was his body positioning and just how he was so awkwardly off there.
Something bothers me about him all the time.
Well, have you not seen that billboard in town? I've watched it. He is not smiling in any SAS party promotional stuff. They have a billboard where, because he can't smile, I don't think, but he just, so he has this billboard where he's squinting at the sun. I think that's the closest they can get. Check it out, because he's actually squinting and grimacing in pain from the sun. I think that's the best expression. You know the one I mean, on Arcola and Vic there?
Oh, I got to
check
it out.
Yeah.
I follow all of his media because it's funny watching conservative media because people like me have to make it. And it just all looks so bad because it's just they must hire the worst people, and like Andrew Scheer stuff is just as cringy too.
Or do they what's the word, sabotage it on purpose?
Well, and that might happen too.
Cory, that's where I thought you were going with the story. Was you were going to say the guy who did it, he knew what he was doing, and he was like, "This is going to be great."
Yeah, no, he totally thought that it would be a Passover magazine cover. Nobody would even think
as he's
about
positioning them for the photo. He's like, "Mo, can you turn the opposite way as everybody else and like lean your
Squint
body
a
outwards?
smidge. Do your smile squint.
Can you make your eyes beadier? Perfect. There we go. That's great. Oh yeah.
Yeah. The Canadian resistance. That's fucking out.
Resistance.
The only resistance we really had here was like Louis Riel. That'd be like
Right.
That'd be a real resistance that we had here, and First Nations resistance,
Yeah. Idle no
But-
more and
things like that.
Yeah.
I was going to make the obvious joke of, I think Mo always looks that way because he still has Brad Wall's hand up his ass.
You know what? He could be a gift. He could be a gift because he's so uncharismatic and just not as he just doesn't have the same appeal. So maybe that'll help next election.
Too bad the NDP's marketing sucks.
How
They're
would
just not
Brad
good.
Wall have appeal? Sorry.
yeah, that's a
Because it
very
all
good
boiled
question.
down to is, you guys suck. No, you guys suck.
Well, Brad Wall had that Trumpianness of saying whatever he thought. I mean, he was like, whoa, he's a straight talker. Like, I remember I'd moved here. I'd been here for like a week. And there was a news piece about prisoners in Saskatchewan refusing to eat because their food
Don't
was
go to
so
prison.
bad. Yeah, and what's his name? Brad Wall said it was quote like they had a recording on the radio going, "Well, that's their own fault for getting in jail," and I'm, like, it was so like the lack of empathy and the lack of responsibility. It was disgusting to me, and I'd never heard of this guy. Like, I'm not from Saskatchewan, right? I was like, this guy's despicable, but that's the kind of shit that would appeal to like the Trumpy type of voters who are like, "Oh, he's a straight talker. Yeah, fuck those fuckers in jail." Like, well. Not saying that like they're all great people, but you actually have a responsibility to look after them.
They're still human beings.
In jail,
But that appealed to people. That was the
Yes,
thing.
I know.
That's the
I know.
problem.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But
you're
that
right.
was pre-Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know if
that was
Brad Wall
Trumpy.
ever said anything that he didn't run past a focus group first.
Oh, for
I
sure.
just he
That
was
clearly
so,
wasn't though.
I wouldn't.
I don't know, man. Like he just kind of seemed to.
I'm thinking like if they are.
No, I did see a video one time where it definitely didn't go past the focus group. So do you think Grant Devine is going to win this election? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I meant in his later years.
The Meet the Mullets, for those listening, please Google Meet the Mullets Saskatchewan. It's fantastic. You want to see what our politicians are like here.
Oh, geez, eh?
Nobody cares.
No, it's kind of a joke, but yeah, the Sask Party sucks.
So I ran into a guy just the other day who wanted to collaborate with me on some political stuff. So I went out for coffee with him and tried to figure out what he wanted to do. And his idea was essentially to find a way to distill evidence-based policy in politics down to like manageable. Everyone's falling asleep here. Down to like manageable sound bites and make it sexy in some way that could also be done nonpartisan. And he said the reason why it could be done nonpartisan is because to show the evidence-based policy decisions done by the Sask Party that have done good things for the province is so few that you could do those, and you could say, yes, these are the good things that the Sask Party's done. Even get some Sask Party followers being like, oh, hey, look at the good thing that this, let's say it's a character, let's say it's a hand puppet. Look at the good thing that this hand puppet is saying about the Sask Party and their evidence-based policy. Nice tying back to that. And then you could start to tie in evidence-based policy from previous governments, like good things that the NDP did after Devine to actually bring Saskatchewan back from the brink of disaster. And then those same Sask Party people that you hopefully got in the beginning might be like, wait a minute. Even though I
already agreed to that thing that was done by the people I don't like.
that right-wing hand puppet page. Now it's saying lefty shit. But anyways, if you could get it to trust the facts, and do it without bias, it could be interesting.
It's a good idea. If you can do that.
Yeah, it's execution. Can you think of anywhere else right now that you find evidence-based policy related to politics, like distilled down to like 30-second or 1 minute little videos?
Not usually.
Yeah, I can't think of anything, and I think it'd be nice. To me, it feels like an Instagram story, something that you would be able to click on, and it would be multiples, and you would watch it for a minute to a minute and a half, and just be like, huh, and then you forget about it. It's gone.
Kind of play into the meme society that we're in.
That's exactly it. Yeah,
and yeah, it's a good idea.
It's like Vines for politics.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like.
Rest in peace, Vines.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think like that you might be able to get people on board if you can just meme them right.
Yeah, that's something that really drew me to Dusty Smithman years ago when he was talking about how the spread like religion spreads like memes spread like genes. They if they're useful for their purpose, then they will continue to propagate. If they become not useful, they won't. And I think ideas spread that way too. And so if you can, turn them into meme type things.
It was Richard Dawkins who came up with that, right?
Memetics, yeah. Yeah, and Dusty Smith just
okay. All right.
Sort of glommed onto it and used it in terms of counter memes. So he said, these are like, if you want to be an atheist apologist, so to speak, that's not exactly the term he used, but essentially, if you want to be debating people in the religious sphere, you need to know what their main memes are, or what their quick ones are that nobody usually retorts, and have the retort for it. And then if you want to really drill down on that, you need to know what they're going to say back to you, and then be prepared to say the next thing. Like on the simple ones, like
right,
like the cosmological argument, like uncaused cause, and can't think of the other one.
We've kind of covered a few of the different arguments for religion in the past. But
and it's good to know it just quickly, so that when you're having that family discussion and somebody says, "Well, you're actually more of you have more faith than a believer because you just." Because you believe that nothing created everything or something,
right.
Then you just need to know what the quick clapback is. And it's very, very, very unlikely that they're going to have one to come back from what the second clapback is, because they're just so not used to people ever challenging on those little quips.
And you'll be like, fuck you, Grandma. Pass the peas.
Take that.
Thanks for supper, jerk. Yeah, I tried it once. It's not good.
All right, let's do our what's the deal. No problem.
No warning whatsoever.
Yeah, that was cruel.
I thought we were going that way.
What's the deal with decaf?
What's the deal with lampshade? What's the deal with...
What's the deal?
Globalism.
With globalism.
Yeah. So I'm sure everybody's heard of globalism, or the globalists trying to take over the world.
The globalists.
That's right. But I didn't know what it meant for a long time. Like, I had no idea.
Oh, it's like a racist thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, there's definitely some racism, anti-Semitism played in there.
I think I've heard it argued that it's like dog whistle racism. It's code.
Yeah.
Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, it is.
Zion.
It is now, yeah.
You ruined my speech.
I mean...
Sorry, continue. Sorry.
You're absolutely right.
I'm stupid.
The word globalist and globalization simply means, like, the expansion of economics and ideas and cultures throughout the world by companies and governments. But right-wing pundits and media people reject that definition. That doesn't seem like too big of a deal, but yeah. What do I got here? They think that it's a secret cabal of random, like, different conspiracies believe different things, but every one of them thinks that it's a secret underground group of people who are trying to take over the world and do something with it.
I was like, and then what?
And then that's that. Like, it's weird.
It's just me, or is anytime that anytime the word cabal is used, it's going to be some racist shit. It's got to be. Right. You know what I mean? There's no way.
Is it just me, or is anytime take over the world is used, you think of like Ren and Stimpy?
No, I think of Pinky in the Brain.
You're thinking Pinky in the Brain.
Oh my gosh, I
Thinking
ruined
Pinky in the
it.
Brain.
Can we cut that out? Yeah, Dave will cut that, right?
No, we don't. We never edit out anything stupid any of us say, or the podcast
I'm
will
never
be 5
coming
minutes
back.
long.
I can't come back
You
to
have
that.
to bribe
I'm sorry,
Cory.
guys.
You have to bribe Cory.
Ren and Stimpy.
You idiot!
Yeah, basically.
Oh, Lito's probably going to make fun of me in the chat, too, isn't he?
Hey, Brian, what we going today tonight? Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to release a podcast.
Oh, shit.
Oh, wait, does this globalist movement have anything to do with, like, oftentimes, and I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory or not because I haven't really looked into it, but, like, the whole, like, one world government.
Yes.
Illuminati.
Yes, that's part of it.
Are you still going on about it? Okay.
No, this is all part of it.
Okay.
Are there
Is there,
reptilians?
like one world currency?
Yeah, they want. Well, they may not have that much planned out in some of these conspiracies. There's a bunch of different ones, like Freemasons, Illuminati, Elders of Zion. The what else do I got? Essentially, there was once the idea
Basically,
that
any shadow
that's right.
government.
The British government was going to come and take over the colonies again.
Do any of you guys watch the extremely terrible show,
So many.
The Curse of Oak Island?
I've seen a couple episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, for whatever reason, I can't shake it. I wanted to like stop making new episodes so I can stop watching it, but it's just every episode is like, gold? Was this brought from blah 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 in 1960 or 1642 when the Illuminati came, or when the Knights Templar? And I was like,
I love all those shows. It's all bullshit, but I love it.
Yeah.
sit there and eat popcorn like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Some of the most recent stuff is like the New World Order, which is kind of came
Great.
to
I got
popularization.
Ministry in my
yeah,
head.
me too. Kind of became popular in the 80s and 90s with George W.
H.W.
George H. The old George. And anything that has a one world government and can fit the boogeyman role. I got a quote from Lauren Southern. She says, globalists laugh at, almost always sneer down their nose at tradition, disdain national culture, laugh at religion, and generally despise the West while holding a creepy affection for the third world. They want open borders, cheap labor, and anti-nationalism to benefit their business and political visions, and are all too willing to shaft the little people to achieve it. But
Isn't that just capitalists?
yeah, which makes it really interesting that like Donald Trump is a guy who's used this globalist conspiracy to shore up his base, right? Because
Well, he says anything because Trump is a Rorschach test because he'd say whatever the fuck. No one will listen to a goddamn thing he said, and then they just read into whatever they wanted from him.
yeah,
You know.
I just listening to conservative media, and there's like, well, I think what Trump meant here was, and they say that constantly, and it's like, why do you just never take him at face value? Well, half the time what he says at
Because
face
he's
value
fucking hearing.
I love typing out transcripts of like his press conferences and things that he says. It's because when you type it out and you read it, you're like, this actually makes no sense. It's just like buzzwords, shit thrown at a page.
yeah. The whole globalist thing, he really loves using that, and now of course he's calling himself a nationalist.
Which you know damn well he doesn't understand what that word is. He's just using it because it's a buzzword, and he thinks it's the nation. I'm a
The people
nationalist.
who like me like that word.
Yeah.
Yeah. The people who don't like me don't like it, but I don't care about them. But yeah, as far as I could tell, some of these things that she thinks globalists are doing isn't really that bad. Like, I mean, I don't like religion. I kind of think traditions are kind of silly. I don't know.
But then again, but it's all through
Nationalism
that.
isn't good.
It's all through that patriotic, anti-American lens, right? Like, even though I know she's Canadian,
Yeah.
but it's still through that. Still kind of.
They identify as North American type
Yeah.
people. Like, yeah, she's Canadian, but she very much has the right-wing Canadian or American bent. to
Yeah,
her.
and that's where it comes from, is the globalists, because they want to, let all the poor people in, and then blah blah blah. Meanwhile, they actually have no problem with the low wages.
Right.
That's not the problem.
That's right. Yeah. Part of my notes, I did mention that there are some issues with capitalists spreading, their industry all over the world and, purchasing labor in third world countries at, half the rate they can get it for here. And I mean, undermining worker unity in a lot of ways. That's an actual issue with actual companies doing things. You don't need a conspiracy theory to figure that shit out.
No, I mean, it's just like, yes, there's globalists, but it's an actual thing where they plunk their headquarters in certain places to be able to min and max tax laws.
Yeah.
It's shady shit.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's not some secret cabal that they meet,
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like, when I was in high school, there was a huge anti-globalization movement. So not
globalists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
G7 protests
think of
and
it, or
shit.
the WTO protests in Seattle that were kind of like the in 1999 were sort of the big turning point there, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean but that was a left thing, right? So I feel like the globalists is almost like the right making the same arguments, but then you kind of get a different prescription for what to do, right?
Right.
So anyway, but this argument of why globalization is bad has been around for a long time.
That's
now.
right. When I was
Not that I was in high school that long ago. I'm very young.
Right. What I was reading is the idea of globalization has been around for a very long time.
Yes.
And even
like Industrial Revolution and colonization, what's it called when they take over countries?
colonialism.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
Well, that's not really where they take over countries. They
Right.
just establish
yeah.
things.
Apologist.
I'm trying to remember who had that. Eddie Izzard, was it? He had that joke. It's like, we claim this land. You can't. We live here. Do you have a flag? No. Well, we claim this land.
Claim this land. Yeah. So, I don't know. Not much more to it. It's
Other than it's the same old shit that's been going on forever. Like, yes, the globalists are the newest. Well, the newest boogeyman is the people of David Icke. But the Freemasons and how there's hidden symbols, they're satanic, blah 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 blah. That's supposed to be written into the walls of the White House and the
yes, of course.
And because they're the capstone and something to do with the Statue of Liberty. There's a bunch of shit. Okay, I watched Mark Dice because I find it funny as fuck. But that's just it. There's been these conspiracies for a long time. Why? Because reasons.
Well, there's always one person who decides, hey, this seems like a thing. And then they write a book or they write a pamphlet and it spreads and people buy into it. Yeah.
Well, because that way they have something to blame all their problems on.
Yeah.
Depending and what that problem is depends on the time period.
Don't these globalist things usually have some sort of anti-Semitic bent to them? Do they not?
Pretty consistently.
Yeah.
There's always the nationalism and the anti-Semitism that is in there somewhere.
So what's the theory that just Jews?
Well, that
rule
came
the
from
world?
essentially.
I've read that before. It came from some guy in when was it? Somewhere around World War I. Wrote this bullshit book called The Articles of Zion, where it's supposed to have been this revelation of this council of the Jewish elders that are planning on taking over the world and blah 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 blah. And that's kind of the template that all these conspiracy theories follow. The cabal is from this bullshit book called The Articles of Zion or The Elders of Zion.
Was
it the Elders or Articles?
The Protocols of the Elders of Zion.
Okay, there we go.
Get your shit straight, man. Fuck.
So, long story short, there is or there isn't no, like, society at the top that's trying to, like, rule all the world.
Well,
No, that's in the middle of the world. They're lizard people.
there isn't no society of secret cabal
Okay, so
Jewish people.
in terms of, like, you would say, who are the most powerful people in the world? Would you just then look to the people who are the wealthiest?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yep.
And so because of the political system in the U.S.,
that gets into a different kind of conspiracy, though.
What's
'Cause,
that?
Like the Rothschilds?
Oh, yeah, that's true. But that also has
Are they Jewish?
anti-Semitism.
That name sounds Jewish. but I mean, seriously, in the
Anti-Semitic,
unfortunate U.S. political system that we have right now, if you have money, you can, long story short, buy politicians. And I mean, they've outwardly said, well, if a lobbyist makes a big donation to us, they're going to be able to get me on the phone. If they don't, they're not. Well, how can they possibly just say that? Like, I mean, everybody knows that, but to just
Citizens
say it,
United. That's how.
I know, but it's just so stupid. It's got to get overturned.
I don't know. Like, we live in a world where rich people get their way in a lot of ways, and they can influence media, and they can pay politicians to
buy
do
media.
things.
They can just buy news.
It's always been.
Yeah, like, so I don't know. You don't
It has
need
always
a
been, but
secret.
the disparity hasn't been so much.
No, that's true. You don't need secret Jewish cabals.
Okay, I think disparity like that has always existed. I mean, when you look at the wealth of the Catholic Church in in medieval times compared to the average peasant, I mean, that disparity is way more than what we have now. I mean, that's
true. Yeah, that's true. It's the way that it's measured now that has increased ever since, like, we started measuring it in the way that we do now.
I think you could find smaller societies where you're going to find less of that. But when we start driving into cities and things, or developing into cities and things like that, like larger societies, is when that happens mostly. That's what I think, anyway.
And with that, let's go to our next break.
If you like what we're doing and want to help us keep the lights on, go become a patron at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. You can hear the bonus half hour that we record every episode and get a shout out when you support the show. Become a patron for just $1 an episode at patreon.com/brainstorm podcast. Or you can support the show by ordering a t-shirt, mug or other gear from our store at caffeepress.ca/brainstorm podcast gear. If you can't afford to become a patron or buy gear, then why not give us a rating or write a review on iTunes or Stitcher? Every rating makes it easier for people to find us. Thanks for your support.
In a world torn apart by a lack of reason,
Or least.
and I think it should be religion treated with ridicule and hatred and contempt, and I claim that right.
In the morning.
Hi, everybody. This is Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast. And if you subscribe now, you'll get free.
Learn more about the broadcast at therighttoreason.com.
So I've got a little bit of a rant, I guess. The mainstream media is not one thing. It's not a monolith that's owned by one dude. There are multiple companies all competing for your attention. They all have certain things in common and they all have flaws, but they are not part of some liberal plot to make you ignore all the hidden plots that are behind the scenes or to make you miss what's quote unquote really happening. They want your attention and they will do whatever they have to in order to keep you watching. That, I think, is why mainstream news doesn't do as well as Fox. They tend to have more journalistic standards. They don't always tell people what they want to hear. They try, though they sometimes fail, to present events and the facts surrounding them in the most verifiable and neutral way possible. I'm not talking about editorials or opinion stories. I'm talking about the news presented as it is with verified facts as neutrally as they kind of try to do. This is another spot where mainstream media fails because young people are not watching cable news, and so older people want to hear what they already think, and that is why Fox succeeds. They editorialize, and mainstream media does not as much. They are, to some extent, failing the way that Donald Trump describes them. The news reflects the opinions of society in a lot of ways. They call black protesters thugs, and they call white terrorists mentally ill lone gunmen, but they also have a set of journalistic standards that they follow, and usually it ends up giving them the best set of facts available at the time. If there's a shooting, then you can be pretty sure that CNN, MSNBC, or CBS will report what they know, and they'll wait until they know more before saying more. Fox, Rebel, and a whole host of other online news sites spanning the field from left to right will often say much more, and often they will find themselves wrong once the facts come out. In a recent shooting, it was widely shared that members of Rebel media made the claim that the assailant was a Muslim, when it in fact turned out it was just another white guy. This isn't by accident. They don't care about the way that other organizations follow a standard of journalism. I'm not trying to say that mainstream media is perfect. They make mistakes. They frame things badly. They're very American-centric, and they're deeply rooted in the neoliberalism and capitalism that funds them. But they aren't making shit up or engaging in cover-ups the way that some members of society seem to think they are. I think that it's actually a bit of a marketing ploy by news outlets and online personalities to make people doubt the quality of journalism that comes from some of these organizations. It makes some people seem more reliable if they can cast doubt on the media that makes them look like crazed conspiracy nuts. If Fox says there's a caravan of immigrants invading America, and CNN says that it's a small caravan thousands of miles from the border, then Fox needs you to think that CNN is lying. They need you to be afraid, and they need you tuning in. It feeds their ratings, it feeds their advertising, and it feeds the political ideology that they're paid to push. When someone online claims that the mainstream media isn't telling people the whole truth, it's because they've heard it from some other source that they trust more. They're not thinking critically, and though they imagine themselves to be among the few who can tell the difference and who see what's really going on, they're buying exactly what they've been told to buy. We say in our intro that a lie can travel 1,000 miles while the truth is still putting on its shoes, and that doesn't play out anywhere near as well as it does in the battle between right-wing punditry and the mainstream media. For every hour that Fox and the supposed alternative media outlets are on the air, they can infest the world with dozens and dozens of little lies that turn regular people into angry, hateful, frightened zealots. As with most things, I don't have a solution, but I do think it's important to remember that while the mainstream media isn't perfect, they are one of the barriers between us and a descent into authoritarianism. We might as well cue the outro music then.
We might as well.
For all the things, you can check out the show notes on our website, brainstormblog.net, and on our hosting page, thebrainstormpodcast.com. Thanks to our financial supporters, Kayla, Janet, Kim, Stephanie, Zach, the Utah Outcasts, Will, Aaron, Daryl, Destin Sucks, Bob, Glenn, Destin Doesn't Suck That Much, Magnus, several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave, Positively Skeptical, Rob, the Podunk Polymath, the Flying Spaghetti Monster, Sauce Be Upon Him, Freethinker215, and Larry. If you want to join them and help the show grow, then you can do that at patreon.com/brainstormpodcast.
And you can think of an awesome name.
That's right.
Top those ones.
Or you can go and buy some stuff at tpublic.com/stores/brainstorm-podcast-gear. You can join us every 2 weeks on brainstormradio.net. Our next live show is December 7th, and our guest is going to be Regina Barber DeGraff.
Gina?
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I love Gina.
That's who I've got booked on the schedule anyway.
You know another guest?
She is the podcast host of Spark Science.
There we go.
Oh, cool.
And she's a friend of mine.
Awesome. I want to give a big thanks again to Dr. Gunter for joining us. You can find more of her stuff at drgenter.wordpress.com. Thank you, Lisa.
Me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Cory. What am I thanking you for?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Thanks, Dan.
Me?
Yes, you. Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
And thanks to Rene, though he's gone, for joining me tonight.
Yeah, no thanks.
Fuck you, Rene.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Dave, for our intro music. Thanks to Aaron Rabbi from Embrace the Void for doing our voiceover for our intro. You can find his stuff at voidpod.com. Thanks to Alex Capper-Murdoch for doing the voiceover for our ads, and thanks to Jason Camo for our outro music. You can find his stuff over at aloststateofmind.com. All music played is either with permission or under the SOCAN license to play. For more information on SOCAN, you can check out the music license info page on our website, brainstormblog.net. Make sure to tune in to brainstormafterhours.com for the bonus content before it goes patron only. Remember to give us a rating, a thumbs up, a fave on your podcatcher of choice. Join our Facebook group, like our page, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our subreddit, sign up for our newsletter, share the show, and spread the word. The more you share, comment, and like our stuff, the more it helps the show grow. Thanks for listening, and remember, the truth matters.
This is an opinion-based podcast. Each person on the podcast is responsible for their own opinions, and those opinions don't necessarily reflect the views of the rest of the panel. Any guests or anyone associated with the people on the podcast, such as spouses, partners, children, other family members, friends, or employers. No one person speaks for the podcast with the possible exception of Cory, and he doesn't speak for anyone else on the show. The Brainstorm podcast does not represent the views of our sponsors.